Hey everyone, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small. In this episode of Formation Focus, we're going to be looking at the German Berlin book for Flames of War, and we're going to be talking about a particular formation. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Heavy Tank Training Company. Now, personally, I'm very intrigued by this company. There are two versions of this. There's the heavy version, which is what this video is going to talk about. There's also kind of a companion version that has not heavy tanks, just regular tanks. You know, we're talking Panzer IVs, those kind of things. But in this video, we're going to be talking about that Heavy Tank Training Company. It's really an interesting formation in that you've got elite HQ and you have very cheap line units in the formation, which makes it really kind of interesting and somewhat unique to play. So let's talk about what the formation is made up of. The formation starts out with a Heavy Tank Training Company HQ. Now the HQ can be any one of the tanks you see here. It could be an HQ made up of Tigers, Tiger IIs, or Panthers. Now, the nice thing about it is you can take one of each, and you can then add an additional one. So if you want to take, make your HQ a Tiger II, and then bring along basically a 2IC or a second tank in your HQ and make it a Tiger, you can. You could have two Tiger IIs in your HQ. You could have two regular Tigers, a Tiger and a Panther, two Panthers. You get the idea. So you can mix and match. Now, this part of the formation is the only part of the formation that's actually going to be hit on a careful rating, hit on a 4+. So think of these as kind of your veterans that are leading the training in the Heavy Tank Training Company. They represent your best motivation and best skill that you're going to have in the core formation. All right, but then beyond that, in the formation, we have two mandatory platoons. The first one is either a Tiger II or a Tiger training platoon. And then the second one is either a Tiger II, a Tiger, or a Panther late training platoon. So those are worse ratings than the HQ unit. So for example, if you're taking a Tiger II training platoon, you can take either 2 or 3. They're hit on 3s. Their skill is only 5+, and their motivation is 4+, which isn't bad, but the skill of 5+ means you're not going to be pulling off Stormtrooper special rule. It's going to be very hard to even get one movement order off like a Blitz or something like that. On a 5-up, it's really tough to do that. Hit on a 3+ for something like the Tiger II isn't bad, because the Tiger II obviously has a 16 front armor. There's really not much, if anything, on the Western front that's going to be able to punch through the front of that armor. And then even the Soviets don't have AT that goes that high. It's going to be a game of trying to get to the sides of the Tiger II and punch through the not inconsequential side armor of 8 that these Tiger IIs have. You could also take, as I said, you could also take the Tiger Tank Training Platoon. You can take these in either 2 or 3. And again, same kind of skill rating. They're hit on 3s. Their skill is a 5+. The Tiger does have the protected ammo special rule, so it will remount on a 3-up. Otherwise, it's the same as the King Tiger. Then you can also take, in the second mandatory platoon, you could take Panthers. And the Panthers come in either 2 or 3 as well, and they probably represent some of your cheapest of the heavy tank platoons. But with front armor 10, it's not a bad tank. It's still hit on 3. It still has the 5-up skill and the 4-up motivation. So again, it's skill-wise, it's not the best, but as a consequence of that, you can afford more to take in your list, and you can take more support outside of the list. All right, so those were the two mandatory. Again, the first one is either a Tiger or Tiger II, and the second one is either those or a Panther. So you can't take an all Panther heavy tank company. You're going to have Tigers or Tiger 2s in there somewhere. But you could take an all King Tiger, an all Tiger heavy tank company if you wished. The not mandatory units are a Tiger tank platoon and a Panzer III platoon. So you could take, again, another unit of tank training Tigers. Now, I realize this is a mid-war Panzer III, but I'm going to use that because I can't find my late-war Panzer III off the top of my head when I'm making this video. This represents... actually, I think it's a no-brainer. You're going to want to have this unit if you're running this formation. You can take up to 4 Panzer IIIs, and they're very cheap because they are hit on 3. They're the 5-up skill. They do have protected ammo, so they do remount on a 3+. Otherwise, their motivation is a 4. But you can take 4 of them, so more tanks than the heavy tank company in a single platoon. And again, they're cheap. And since they're core formation, it's one more thing you can have that will keep your formation around the game. Rounding out the formation, you can also take either a Panzer Grenadier platoon or a training Panzer Grenadier platoon. You can take up to 2 of those to fill out your core formation. Now, depending on what you're taking, you might run out of points really quick and not be able to take them, but it is nice that you can also have those cheap Panzer Grenadiers if you want the training version, or you can take the more elite Panzer Grenadiers and make your force, a little bit more offensive. A little bit more offensive. So, how is this heavy tank training company used? Well, I've had the pleasure to command it a couple of times and fight against it, I think, once. And 1, it's fun to play. 2, it's challenging to play because although you can create an exceptionally good defensive list, attacking is a little bit tougher. And in general, when you're talking late war, particularly against the Soviets, but even the Americans with their higher velocity AT-13 and 14 they can bring to the table, regular Tigers and Panthers, needless to say, this guy, can be quite vulnerable to the amount of fire that they're coming. Tiger still only has front armor 9, and the Panthers upgraded to front armor 10. So those particular tanks don't have quite the staying power of the King Tigers. Really, King Tiger is, if you're playing defensively, one of the best ways to go, because if you're not moving forward, you're just hanging back and sniping, the hit on 3 really doesn't matter to you as a King Tiger, as opposed to the regular Tiger and Panther, where you can still be punctured by, like, IS-2s are firing AT-14, M38 Jacksons on the American side, you got Fireflies, and there's all kinds of things that can threaten, again, the Tiger and the Panther, whereas the King Tiger doesn't need to worry about it. Now, that becomes a lot more challenging when you have to attack. If you have to push forward with King Tigers, it is very deadly, because then it opens up a world of flank side shots on your King Tiger, which side armor 8 is still respectable, but against AT-13, AT-14, it's just not optimal, especially for a tank that costs a lot of points. Overall, though, the formation is, like I said, it's fun to play, and it gives you a lot of challenges. So, like I said, defending is easier with this formation than attacking, but successful attacking is possible, particularly if you take the more elite Panzer Grenadiers, not the training version, in this core formation. They can really carry a lot of the weight in attacking units, or attacking objectives and things like that if it's needed. The other thing to talk about is what kind of support might you take with a company like this. Support is important. You're not going to have a ton of points. I guess it depends on what point level you decide to play, but you're not going to have too many points. Really, 2 or 3 supporting units are probably going to be the max you're going to be able to squeeze, but you've got a lot of choices in the German Berlin book. We're going to talk more in detail about that German Berlin book in another video, by the way. But in regards to what support we need here, I would think one thing you'd want to consider is anti-aircraft support. Yes, your King Tiger is impervious to the front, but it's not impervious to bombs dropping in on it from the sky. So protecting the King Tigers from Sturmovix or thunderbolts, things like that, typhoons, is or can be important depending on what your opponent brings. Also, some kind of artillery could be very helpful for a list like this. It can, you know, if you have a unit of artillery in your list, your opponent cannot afford to cram all his infantry in a very small space. You know, you're going to probably force your opponent to spread out. And if they don't and do cram all their stuff together, even better. You drop a template and hit much more. But having some kind of artillery, some kind of threat like that is really, really helpful. Some recon to offer some spearhead can be helpful if you think you're going to be facing a mission where you're going to need to attack. But again, you know, I don't think this is the best attacking force. I think there's ways to build. There's other lists that perform the offensive role better. But, you know, if you're taking this to a tournament or something, you have to have a plan to assault. You're not going to ever place well in a tournament just playing defense across all your missions. It just doesn't work that way, and it can get kind of old. So this list does give you some cool options, though, and some fun. All right, guys, let me know down in the comments below if you've tried this formation, and if you had, what has been your experience. If you want to see me using this list and playing against it, do check out our Patreon. I think we have one battle up already with the Heavy Tank Training Company, and there's more that are coming out in the next few months. So if you want to see battle reports with this, do check out our Patreon. All right, guys, thanks for watching this formation overview, and keep on gaming.